Good afternoon. My name is Travis Grantham, and I'm the Executive Director of Gift Planning and Special Gifts here at Embry-Riddle. I want to welcome everyone to our virtual Lunch and Learn on Estate Planning. And before I introduce our guest speaker, allow me to go over how today's presentation will work. As we go through the presentation, you are welcome to ask questions by using the chat feature. We will stop a couple of times throughout the presentation to go through and answer as many questions as possible. At the end of the presentation, we will allow everyone the opportunity to unmute their microphones and ask questions directly to our presenter or myself. Today's presentation is going to talk about the importance of having an estate plan in place, making sure your last wishes are carried out. If that includes leaving something to Embry-Riddle, I welcome the opportunity to discuss various options with you. Now, I do have a legal disclaimer for today's presentation. Embry-Riddle does not endorse any speaker and recommends you do your own research to pick your financial advisor. Cindy Price serves on the Embry-Riddle Gift Planning Council and is volunteering her time today to do this presentation. Cindy Price has over 30 years of experience and is a certified financial planner professional. Cindy is a graduate of Stetson University's College for Financial Planning. Active in the community, Cindy has provided educational workshops to over 20 local organizations. Cindy understands the importance of helping clients make the most appropriate financial decisions possible and strives to offer clients honest financial strategies to real-life issues. She focuses on pre-retirement and retirement planning. I will now turn the presentation over to Cindy Price. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and feel free to comment in the chat box at any point in time if you have a question that you're not able to address through the microphone. And we do have a PowerPoint that Annie has put together for us. And are we in a position to go ahead and start showing that? Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I'm going to talk about financial planning and in the matter of the 6 L's. And I found this something that I put together just very, makes it easy to identify what people's priorities are. So the different L's are: number 1, liquidity. Now, this is saving for things that you might need before retirement. It could be college for your kids, could be a car, could be a second home, home repairs. So that's the first L. The second L is long-term disability. Depending on where you are in your career, for someone who's early on in their career, their largest asset is their ability to go to work every day. That could be worth several $1,000,000. And if they can't work due to a sickness or an injury, they need to have a long-term disability plan in place to protect those earnings. Life insurance, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, can be a priority if you want to provide financial security for your spouse or for your children, because possibly you have not accumulated all the assets necessary to do that, or there's certain debts that you want to have paid off, or certain charities or universities that you want to make sure benefit. Longevity, we spend the most amount of time on longevity, and we just don't know. I have clients that are 99 years old. And then I had 2 gentlemen in my office this week that both lost their spouses this year at early 60s, and retirement looks really different for them than they expected. So making sure that you have enough money to last as long as you will last. And then long-term care, once you do get to that time where you've accumulated the assets, the one thing that could erode your assets would be having to go into a long-term care facility or have somebody take care of you. This could be dementia. Parkinson's is a very common one. diabetes. Hopefully you never have any of these things, but the statistics are pretty daunting. About 60% of people need some length of care. So long-term care plan so that your family knows what monies or resources you will use for that. And then finally, my favorite L is leaving a legacy. So it's, you have opportunities, or you may have certain charities or people in your life you want to make sure that you leave a legacy to. I know at Embry-Riddle, there's different, Mr. Henderson obviously donated for the Welcome Center and was able to leave a legacy with his name on it. So, you know, some people have the ability to do that. I will go to the next slide. So these were the 6 L's. I decided over COVID to write a book, and the book will be ready in print in the next month. And it is cover the L's that we just talked about now, and examples of clients that have had a successful strategy or run into some roadblocks along the way. And I did add a seventh L, and that is life transitions. And life transitions, boy, oh boy, that can be job changes, dealing with parents, going through divorce, widowhood, or widowerhood. So the 7th L is life transitions. If you want to, the book is just going to be $10. If you would like to be on a list to get the book, feel free to email me or put that in the chat or let Travis know. But I'm pretty excited. The next slide. So the there's a chart here, and the little bubbles. There are certain assets that are taxable that you invest in, and that's going to be your stocks and your savings account and your mutual funds and maybe your real estate that isn't your home. And then there's going to be certain assets that are tax deferred. And that's going to be your IRAs, your 401ks, your pension plans, your 403bs. And then there's money that will grow tax-free. And that is your Roth IRAs, municipal bonds, and then cash value life insurance. So if you are maximizing your Roth IRA or not eligible for a Roth IRA, you might want to consider cash value life insurance, because it is creditor proof. It is invested as aggressively or as conservatively as you want, and you can access it prior to 59 and a half. And then you can have the death benefit as a legacy to your university, your charity, or your loved ones. So things that you might not have known about having cash value life insurance as part of your overall investment portfolio. So those are the 3 handouts before we get into the meat of the family love letter or sharing your love PowerPoint presentation, where we'll focus a little bit more on estate planning. So we'll go on to that PowerPoint now. Annie's doing an amazing job. Okay, so this is we've called it the family love letter. We've called it share your love, because really the greatest gift that you can give, you know, with Christmas, or even think about Valentine's, is having your house in order. And so this discussion guide, we can actually give to you as a PDF that you can fill out, or we can help you to fill this out. So next slide. This is our disclosures. Next. We're going to talk about the importance of estate planning, the discussion guide, and then once you've completed this, what are your next steps? Importance of estate planning is about how you want your assets distributed. And it's very important that you prepare that ahead of time. You probably have stories of folks that that didn't plan and had to spend a lot of money on probate, or just had to, at a time when they really didn't want to have to deal with this, they had to deal with it at a time of like a fire sale or a time of distress. And it's about protecting your family members. So we have two important goals here: to have these conversations and to complete your legal documents. It's really interesting. Everybody's family, whether they talk about money is just different. In my family, my mom is a PhD in psychology and my dad a PhD in finance. And we didn't have any problems talking about money and being open about it, and, being able to say, hey, my mom recently said, do you want this china? Otherwise, I'm going to sell it at the estate sale down the road. Well, I said, Mom, I really actually do like that china. So, it's great that we had that discussion now. My brother doesn't want it. So if either your family is one that, and as Thanksgiving, you're around the table, you're in a Zoom Thanksgiving like we're going to have with my side of the family, maybe it's you want to have some of the conversations about things that are important to you, but other people don't want, are uncomfortable with that. All right. Well, it was, believe it or not, it was just 4.5 years ago that Prince died at age 56. It was very sudden. And you know what? He died without a will. Can you believe it? Do you know how much his estate was worth? $200 million. And do you know how much money has been spent in illegal costs and administrative costs because there was no will? $45 million has been spent on lawyer fees and administration. So Prince left fans with a gift of music, but also a lesson that no matter what your financial situation is, it's never too soon to have an estate plan. Are you on the call with us, Steve? One of my
Yes, I am. I am here.
I know you had a recent story or situation. You want to share how the love letter was instrumental or could have been instrumental?
Yeah. No, definitely. So good. Yeah, my name's Steve Young. I've got a little bit of information to cover here down the road, but I work with Cindy really as a resource. So I work with Equitable. My role is to work with advisors here in the Southeast and really support advisors like Cindy. I represent certain strategies. We help build and present, concepts like this. And, even before I get into my story, I would say, what I tell everybody is talk with Cindy or talk with a financial advisor. Cindy is the local advisor. I don't recommend anybody do anything specifically because kind of like Travis at the beginning, had his little disclaimer. I don't know the direct clients, right? So I work with the advisors, so I can't recommend anything. But what I tell everybody, again, is sit with an advisor. They have access to the people we're going to discuss in here, tools like this. And again, I'm helping out Cindy here with little co-presenter roles. I apologize for not being on the Zoom. It's one of those technology days where normally we'd be in person, obviously. I look at this like the day the plane is late and I missed my meeting and my bag gets stuck. And this is like that day in technology world. So wish I could see all your faces. But again, Steve Young with Equitable. And yeah, my story, unfortunately, earlier this year, my dad passed away, pretty unexpectedly. Both my parents are up in New Jersey, and he was extremely organized. To Cindy's point, we didn't have a ton of discussions about finances and different things. Knew my mom was taken care of, and obviously vice versa. And while he didn't specifically have this tool, I'd given it to him, but I saw that he hadn't filled it out. I mean, I will give my dad an A when it comes to the organization. He basically did on his own. And that's my dad. That's why I love him. He always had everything lined up, organized, and he had lists with the things I'm going to touch on in a few slides, and I'll get it back to Cindy before that. So I give him a solid A. The only thing that would have made it better is having this guide, which again, Cindy has access to and can get to you. That would have had everything filled out, and like the few little holes that I had to do a little sleuthing on. And it wasn't too difficult. That would have been it. I mean, that would have been the A+, the icing on the cake. So I'll get into maybe some more specifics in a few slides on how I kind of approached all these different things and how easy it was since it was organized. But I will just tell you, having it all organized took a ton of stress off me. I'm the oldest son, handling all the stuff. And my mom as well, who's definitely stressed, not being the financial person in the relationship, but just knowing it was so easy to handle. And she gives me way more credit than I deserve. It was all laid out there by my dad. So, yeah, thank you, Cindy. I'll pass it back to you and hop in for a couple of specifics here in a little bit.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, Annie, we can move to the next slide. So again, the purpose is to have a written, documented plan and to, save your loved ones from searching for things. I had a gentleman in my office this morning that did lose his wife suddenly about 8 months ago, and he brought in the notebook that she had put together. It was perfectly organized, and he said, but he had not updated it since she passed away 8 months ago because it's just not he doesn't like to, not his area of giftedness, he said, but boy, did he show him love. And his friend who also lost his wife, both of these folks were Volusia County school teachers, had done a video for her husband, where to find things and, how she wanted him to carry things out. And there's even a movie that actually I have the movie cover. I'll share it with you, with Michael Keaton, My Life. And he does a video for his wife, Nicole Kidman, about, what he would want to have happen because he knew he was terminal. But don't want to talk about things that are that discouraging at this time, but just be prepared. So next slide. So in this document, which we'll provide for you that you can fill out or we can help you fill out, you're going to have your key contacts. You're going to have an inventory of your assets. You're going to list where your documents are located, or you're going to include your documents here. And then the last part is your ethical will, or your values and things that you would want to pass on. It might include your favorite Thanksgiving recipe. Next. Digital passwords. I mean, that's a big deal. I'm always making sure that we have a common safe place that my husband can update what the passwords are in case something were to happen. So, and what the combination to our big safe is, where our important documents are. Next. So your assets are going to be your investments, your property, Your primary residence in the state of Florida, if it's owned jointly with your spouse, would go directly to your spouse and there wouldn't be any taxes. If there are real estate that are outside of your personal residence, depending on how it's titled, there could be taxes due. So it's important to know that. You want to list your liabilities and any credit card information. If you own a credit card and it's only in your name, those debts are actually forgiven if you pass away. So if you've ever wondered if somebody's credit card has to be paid off when they pass away, it depends on whether they owned it jointly, that credit card with somebody else. So maybe a lesson there is to not own your credit cards jointly. Next. Very important that you've got your information on your life insurance, your health insurance, your disability, your long-term care, medical, dental, and then if you're 65 or older, you would have Medigap and Medicare. Many of you, might have worked in the military, and it's important that that's documented and that you have the appropriate documentations that I think it's called a DD4. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Maybe some of you know. The next slide. You should have a will, a living will, and powers of attorney. Power of attorney is while you're living, gives somebody the opportunity to sign and act on your behalf. So be careful who you give power of attorney to, but it is important that somebody, in case you're traveling, that they can sign for you. And important that you have, again, everything titled properly, a copy of all of your important documents, and usually just your last 3 years tax return. Next. We just went over these. I think the one that I didn't really touch on is the medical power of attorney and living will. What is the difference? Well, a living will says, do I want to be kept on life support? Where a medical power of attorney says, if I'm under anesthesia or not able to in an accident, who can speak for me about what I would want, what kind of medication, whether I want surgery. We talked about the general power of attorney, and then the ethical will, again, is optional, but that's more of a touchy-feely, personal document. We'll talk about that in the end. So your will, again, that really make sure things are documented. What's important to know about a will is that how you title assets overrides a will. So if I have my son jointly on an account with me, but my will says that things go to my husband, my son is going to get that account. Now, my husband could go to court and try to contest it, but again, it's important that you know that how you title something overrides what your will says. This is an example, where is that wedding ring? Where is that, these days you don't know whether a piece of jewelry is costume jewelry or antique gold. And I know a fun event that we've had in the past is to actually have, somebody that's an appraiser come and everybody bring something from the house and you find out whether it's worth, I think there's actually a show, whether it's worth $5 or $5 million. So you want to maybe list those and who you would want to receive things. Your living will, again, is regarding whether you want to be taken off of life support, what are your desires regarding your medical treatment. Medical power of attorney, a little more detailed, again, what types of things, medications you're okay taking, and who could speak for you if you can't speak for yourself. Durable power of attorney is the same thing as power of attorney. Again, this person can act in your behalf. We talked about that. Some things you might want to think about, pre-planning your funeral is good. It saves money, it saves time, it makes sure that your wishes are carried out. That's something my husband and I have already done. You can go ahead and have that planned for, so that if at a time when people are in distress, they don't have to plan it. Your ethical will says, how do you want your family and friends to remember you? I even have a game that we'll play that has questions that if we were there live today, I would play this game with you guys. But, question might be, what is the one thing about money that you have learned in your life, or that you would want to pass down? Or what is the thing about family that you would want to pass down? Or one of my favorite ones is, if you were given $1 million and you had to give it to charity, and you could only give it to 3 charities, how would you divide that money up? So those are some examples of things that you might have in your ethical will. We actually have on our refrigerator the Price Family Motto. And some of the things in the Price Family Motto are, if we see a need and we have the ability to fill it today, we feel led to, we do it right away. We don't think about it. Well, we go ahead and do it, because that's a need that needs to be fulfilled, and we can fill it. In everything we do, we keep eternity in view. We have several things. We always also say, I want to be a there you are person instead of a here I am person. And so our kids who are in college and out of college now, they still use the Price Family Motto. So maybe you have the Grantham Family Motto that you want to memorialize or put in writing on your refrigerator. Next. So once you've completed this, which we'll give you a copy of in a PDF that you can complete, then with mine, I actually have it in a really large binder, and I have the other key statements and legal documents attached to it, and it's in a fireproof safe. So it's in a binder in a fireproof safe. I guess that's the last slide. I didn't realize that. So I want to take the rest of the time to go ahead and ask questions, and then I will go ahead and email to you the Family Love Letter Guide so that you can complete it on your own. And we are ready to go over questions, whether it's about estate planning, whether it's about investments, financial planning, life insurance.
I have a question.
Okay. Hi there, Shelley.
Hi. So back, and it's been a while, I'm trying to remember, but it was probably 20 years ago, maybe 22 years ago. My husband and I set up a trust, and I didn't see you talk at all about the trust, but I did see in the will that certain amount of funds can get passed on with tax-free. basically. But I know when my mom was dying, she had us all the kids set up trusts so that the estate could be split and no funds would go to the state, that it would all go to the kids. So has that changed in the years?
Some things have changed. I'm really glad that you brought that up. So one of the reasons people did trusts in the past was to avoid estate tax. And that's what you're talking about, Shelley. And it wasn't that long ago, about 12 years ago, the estate tax limit of assets was $600,000. So if your home and your investments equaled 600,000 or more, then you had estate taxes, and estate taxes could be up to 40%. And, what do we want to do? We want to try to avoid estate taxes or any taxes if we can. So what people did then is they did what's called an AB trust. So husband and wife would split the assets, and you could have then 1.2 million that you could shelter. And then anything over that, you would buy life insurance to pay the estate taxes. But the tax laws changed, and it's now $12 million. I know, isn't that crazy? So now you have to have over $12 million to have an estate tax. Now, who knows? Tax that before we pass away, it could go back down. So that keeps estate planning attorneys in business, I think, is the fact that it goes back and forth. So that's one reason for a trust. But another reason for a trust is that if you do everything with just a will and beneficiary designations, then you're saying, okay, I, Shelley, am really fine with my kids. Just whatever happens when I'm gone, I trust that they're going to do the very best thing with the money. And if they choose to go to Vegas with it, I'm okay with that. If their life, if they open a business and it doesn't, and use all the money, or I'm okay with it. Well, if you do a trust, then say very specifically, and it may not be the greatest term, but control from the grave, which my husband and I have a trust, says, okay, our kids don't get all the money until they're 45 years old, because really, believe it or not, it takes that much time. And then I want them to they can get money before that, but they have to be working. And it has to equal what they're, they're making working. And if they get divorced, the money's not we don't want them to commingle it with their spouse in case they get divorced and their spouse gets it. So you get an opportunity in a trust to protect children from things that happen in life. They get in a horrible accident with a school bus and they're sued. Well, guess what? If they had put all your inheritance in their bank account, it's gone. But if it was still in the trust, using it as they needed it, then it's protected. So I really suggest that anybody with, let's say, 500,000 or more in investments, consider a trust. Or if you're in a second marriage, that's another really good reason. My parents were professors. My dad passed away. My mom remarried a professor from Rollins, and they have a trust because we want to make sure that if my stepdad dies, his 3 children get his things.
Right.
And my mom passes, my brother and I, but they want to take care of each other as long as one of them's living. So hopefully I answered.
It was very helpful. Thank you. It has changed over the years, and I appreciate that. And so I guess I have one more follow-up question is, when would you recommend, my husband and I are older, and we have a college-age student, when would you recommend he get a trust, or should I,
Your college age student?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
just because I want to make sure he's set up before we're both gone,
So the trust wouldn't be a trust it would be a trust that you and your husband set up for his benefit. He probably doesn't need his own trust in his name unless he has kids.
Okay, and he doesn't yet. Okay.
Right, or anybody that
Right.
he needs to protect, but it's not too soon, again, back to the question, if you say, you know what, if my husband and I are gone, we are okay with our son just getting the money and doing, actually they changed, if they get retirement money, your children get your retirement money, an IRA or 403B. It used to be that they could stretch it and keep it in their own IRA and take distributions over their lifetime. Well, this was changed this year. They have to take it out over 5 years. That's another good reason for a trust, because if there's a sizable IRA and they have to take 1/5 of it every year and put it in their bank account and things like that, an IRA is oftentimes protected from creditors, but the other accounts might not be. So a trust could, it's a good time now to probably consider a trust.
Okay. Thank you. Very,
You're
very
welcome.
helpful. Thank you, Cindy.
No problem. Who else has a question?
Cindy, this is John Rollins.
Hey, John.
I was interested in one of your early slides that referenced, is it 7702?
Yes, 7702, which is the IRS code that allows for cash value and life insurance to accumulate tax-free and be taken out tax-free.
And what's the process or procedures to initiate that type of life insurance?
Okay. Well, the process would be to determine how much you have per month or per year to dedicate towards that. And then then depending on your age, it will translate into a certain death benefit. There is some medical underwriting. They've definitely become a little more lenient with that. So you are getting a death benefit. So maybe you're putting in $10,000 a year, and the first year you put your $10,000 in, you automatically might have a $200,000 death benefit. So you've got a $200,000 benefit that will go to either charities or your family. And then as you continue to add that 10,000, it's invested either aggressively with mutual funds or more conservatively with a universal life where you have upside potential with downside risk. You typically want to, John, put money in for about four to 6 years before you start taking money out.
Mm-hmm.
Longer you build it, the better a retirement cash flow it will tax-free it will provide for you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on that, John?
No, not that particular item. I know we've talked a little bit, Mary Lynn and I, about RMDs when you get ready to retire and how to best manage those. And there have been a lot of articles recently about using the RMDs as an advantage to donate to an institution or something that you're interested in.
Yes, it's called a QCD. I think that's the terminology, qualified charitable distribution. So as you may know, because of COVID in 2020, you do not have to take your RMD if you don't want to, if you don't want to pay taxes. But you are eligible this year or any year before or after to take that RMD and direct it to Embry-Riddle or any other charity of your choice. And you do not pay the taxes and the charity doesn't pay the taxes. So you actually have to fill it out on your RMD form and have the address. So it goes direct. We have a lot of clients that are doing that. Because if I tell them, if you were already, especially if they're already charitably inclined, then that $10,000 you were giving each year, you had to maybe make 12,000 to give 10. Here, you're able to give, you don't have any taxes. So you're able to give 100%. You don't have to pay any in taxes. So yes, that is the best ways to give to charity tax efficiently are while you're living, definitely your RMD, also your highly appreciated stock. You have stock that you pay or that you inherited or paid very little for and it's now worth much more. You can donate that to charity and they get to sell it and not pay the taxes, and you don't pay you get the full deduction and don't pay the capital gains either. So those are probably my two favorite while you're living. And then as a legacy, beneficiary on your retirement plan. So I put my charity as my beneficiary on my retirement plan, then they don't have to pay the income tax, where if my son receives it, he's got to pay those taxes over 5 years. And then life insurance as well, because that's the fastest check that clients get when that their beneficiaries get when they pass away. It's the easiest process. So those are probably my favorite strategies while living and at death.
Thank you. That's great.
Sure, John.
All right, any other questions for Cindy before we wrap this up today? If not, I just want to thank Cindy for her presentation today and giving us a snapshot of, estate planning and kind of what we need to do to get ready. So Cindy, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for participating. Have a good day. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thanks so much.